I never imagined I'd be pregnant for 3 years, but the day I laid 9 eggs changed everything. I will never forget that moment. The air was thick. Heart pounding. I was alone in my cramped apartment, filled with shadows and the heavy rise and fall of my breath. Distorted echoes surrounded me as I stared, wide-eyed, at the small, glimmering orbs that seemed to pulse with life. It felt unreal. I touched the first one, smooth, cool, and fragile. My fingers trembled. How could this happen? Wasn't pregnancy supposed to unfold over months? But here I was. A bizarre twist of fate had bestowed this strange reality upon me. For 3 years, I was trapped, both blessed and cursed. My friends whispered in disbelief, some couldn't even look me in the eye. Their faces filled with shock, pity, and best intentions. "You'll be fine," they said, but the doubt in their voices cut deeper than any knife. And my family? Oh, they were terrified. My mother's hands were always trembling when she spoke about it. She pleaded for normalcy, for a cure, while my father fell silent, lost in his own thoughts. I felt like a pariah among them, a creature of myth, something extraordinary yet grotesque. I craved connection, but isolation became my best friend. I could hear my heart beating a wild rhythm, matching the distress in the air. Every day I awoke to that same suffocating uncertainty. Some nights, I sat awake, listening to the ticking clock echo in the silence, counting down the strange time I spent in this limbo. Friends drifted away. Too strange, they'd say. I became a series of whispers, a ghost roaming my own life. The day of the 9th egg, the tension snapped. It rolled from my body, warm and miraculous. I held it close, feeling the weight of it, so different, so alive. What would happen now? What did it mean? The room spun. The world outside felt both near and impossibly far. My heart raced, tears threatened to spill. Could I share this with anyone? There was excitement, but more than that, there was fear. Fear of what came next, fear of the unknown, fear of being alone in something so profound. My hands were slick with sweat, the air electric with possibility. I couldn't hold back any longer. I wanted to scream. I wanted to laugh. I wanted to hide. And just as I was about to reach for the phone, to call Samioni, a loud crack echoed through the silence, pulling me from my chaos. My heart sank. What had I unleashed? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The sound reverberated, leaving a chilling aftertaste in the air. I stood frozen, my heart racing, clenching the 9th egg to my chest. There it was, again, a crack, sharp and clear, echoing through my small apartment like a thunderclap that shattered the fragile world I'd constructed in my mind. Panic clawed at my insides. Had I unwittingly disturbed the delicate balance, the already rocky path upon which I walked for 3 long years? I glanced at the eggs, each one resting in its makeshift nest, cradled between layers of fabric I had lined with the utmost care. My breath came quick and shallow. I felt their pulse, a low thrum in counterpoint to my chaotic thoughts. They were alive. Each egg was a promise, a looming question pregnant with potential. What would emerge? Would I be prepared to face it? Suddenly, as if summoned by my turmoil, the peculiar sound split the silence again, and my eyes widened in horrified anticipation. I shuffled closer to the nest, unable to shake the feeling that something monumental was about to unfold. My heart felt as if it were ensnared in a vice as I leaned forward, yearning to witness whatever miracle or catastrophe lay within those shells. A final crack, sharper this time, and the surface of the nearest egg began to quiver. I held my breath, painfully aware of the intensity of the moment. Then came the surge, the punctured shell, and from it emerged a small, draconic silhouette, glistening with flashes of color that danced in the fading light of my apartment. My stomach lurched in disbelief. For a heartbeat, time suspended itself. The little creature blinked slowly, its wet, shimmering eyes locking onto mine with a fierce intensity. In that moment, the world outside vanished. All that existed was the overwhelming connection between us. I felt a swell of joy mixed with sheer terror. I was not just a vessel, I was a creator, a mother in the purest sense, yet my own personal storm still raged within. But the newborn's arrival was not a standalone phenomenon. It was just the beginning. With that first burst of life, the other eggs started to tremble, like the beginnings of a symphony reaching its crescendo. I gasped, the gravity of the situation crashing down on me. Uncertainty, the fear of the unknown flooded my senses. I felt her presence before I heard her voice. "You did it." The words slipped through the door, unheard, but they were unmistakably there, a warm caress against my cold, panicked heart. My neighbor, Zara, had been a distant figure, a mere shadow lingering in the halls of our building, but now she stood at my threshold, the fading golden light of the evening wrapping around her like a halo. I had never known her well, but there was something about the strength in her voice that anchored me as I stumbled through my realization. "What the hell?" I managed to choke out. "How did you know?" "I heard you." Her face softened then, the edges of her worry blurring into something more tender. "I've been worried. You've kept to yourself for too long. I thought maybe you needed help." Such a simple, frail word, it dug its claws into me, igniting a fire I had long buried beneath layers of fear and isolation. "What kind of help? You don't even know what's happening here." "I don't need to know at all. Just let me in." She offered an open palm, an invitation to embrace both the chaos and the mystery that surrounded me. Just then, as if fueled by the energy coursing through the room, another egg shattered. Hope collided with my rising panic as I turned my gaze back to the nest, wild eyes peering into the cocoon of my former life. What had I built? What was breaking free? But what if this was too big, too profound for someone like me to handle alone? It was too late for the comforting notion of normal. Everything had changed, and sustenance flickered like shadows. The moment felt precarious, poised between wonder and despair. Zara stepped closer, her demeanor steadying my own frayed nerves. "Whatever comes, you won't have to face it alone." The words were heavy with unspoken commitments. The weight. They carried pressed deep into my heart, eliciting tears that threatened to spill. As I felt the first pangs of gratitude for this unexpected kindness, another egg cracked open, and my fate began to unfold before my eyes. Another creature emerged, its look wild but somehow eager, joining the first, and I blinked, caught off guard by the sheer reality of what was happening. There would be more. My hands brought both warmth and fear, a coaching world blooming in shades of light I hadn't dared to dream of. But just as I was about to share this heartbeat of hope with Zara, darkness swept through my thoughts once more. I realized, with dawning horror, how dangerously close I was to unraveling everything I had tried to shield from others. My secret, my extraordinary truth, was it even safe anymore? This realization gripped my throat, squeezing hard. Lucy, my only friend who dared speak to me, had hinted that I wasn't the only one in this bizarre journey. She had mentioned something about others, similar to me, albeit more sinister. And now, with my heart racing, the thought echoed ominously within me: fear of being found, of being different. What if others out there wanted these eggs, my children? Cautiously, I pulled Zara closer into the tight air of the apartment, my heart racing even faster at the thought of threats that lingered just outside. "We need to stay quiet," I whispered, voice trembling with urgency. "We can't let anyone find out." As a third egg started to shatter, I could hear the distant echoes of something unforeseen stirring, urging me into the unknown. I faced an intricate web of hope, fear, beginnings, and terrifying truths, and somehow still, the shadows loomed. I knew I could not face this peril, whatever it might be. One. but could I trust Zara? Did I have any option but to lay bare my heart, holding my newly blossoming family into the fragile light of connection? We were on the brink, caught teetering between joy and fear, and just as the dimensions of my new reality expanded, something crackled within. Something that might change everything again. The warmth of Zara's presence surrounded me, offering a glimmer of safety amidst the growing chaos. I could feel the weight of the moment pressing around us, the sensation of impending discovery looming heavier with each life that emerged from the cracked shells. With every beat of my heart, I understood more that keeping the truth hidden would not shield me from the gathering storm, but instead, it would only amplify its fury. The third egg gave way with a delicate shatter, revealing a tiny creature, its wings glinting like shards of glass in the low light. I held my breath, utterly captivated yet terrified. The arrival of each new life felt profound, but for every flicker of hope they brought, a darker thought lurked in the corners of my mind. The others. The ones Lucy spoke of. Were they watching, lurking, waiting until curiosity turned to terror? Let me help you, Zara insisted, her voice steady and coaxing, nudging me back to the present. You don't have to carry this alone. There was something undeniable in her eyes, an earnestness that chipped away at my fortress of solitude. Yet, even as I felt the tension in my chest ease slightly at her offer, I was still paralyzed by fear. What if the cost of her support was too high? She didn't know what she was stepping into. Another egg cracked open, the tiny being appeared, its scales luminescent and shimmering, as if it had absorbed all the hope and light in the room. I dared to smile, the wonder fighting hard against the shadows of dread. I reached out instinctively, this new life pulling at the maternal instincts I never knew I had, but the looming threat of exposure dampened my joy. Help comes in many forms, Zara said thoughtfully, sensing my hesitation. You're not the only one who needs protection right now. These little ones deserve to be safe too. As I watched her go from cautious stranger to committed ally, an unexpected glimmer flickered within me, a hope shimmering at the edges of my anxiety. But just as this newfound warmth began to take root, another part of me twisted painfully, the shadows pulling tighter still. Trust felt as foreign as the creature's awakening before my eyes. Zara, I whispered, struggling to articulate my swirling thoughts, what if there are others who want them? They could be threatened. My secret, it could hurt them. The hardness in her gaze faltered, revealing a flicker of vulnerability. Then we fight for them. Together. We protect what we love. The gravity in her voice surged through me, bridging the chasm formed by fear and vulnerability. Yet, even as the promise of partnership settled within, I couldn't shake the turbulent wind swirling around. The mysterious others, the thought of them made my stomach churn. Who were they? What did they want? Just as I contemplated spilling my fears, the room exploded into movement as the fourth egg erupted violently, pieces of shell scattering like fallen stars. My heart raced. A creature like the others emerged, its cries piercing the air, an overwhelming cacophony of life and magic intertwining in the small confines of my apartment. They hungered for warmth, but beneath my rising panic lay the stark realization of my solitude, and then came the doubt. Did I really have the strength to protect these fragile lives? Would I be able to face whatever came next? I thought of Lucy and her cryptic warnings, her voicemails turning increasingly fraught with hints of dangers that lurked in the corners of our seemingly mundane world. I turned to Zara, needing her strength as the weight of worry bore down on me. You don't understand. My friend, she knows something about others like me. She said there were dangers, shadows that hunted. Zara's brow furrowed in concern, her fierce eyes shimmering with sincerity. What kind of danger? Before I could respond, the shrill cries of the hatchlings intensified, demanding attention. I felt myself straddling the line between elation and despair. With each life that emerged, I was simultaneously given everything I ever wanted and everything I feared. Suddenly, the door rattled violently, sending a surge of primal terror down my spine. My heart pounded as time dilated, the weight of everything crashing in like a relentless tide. Something simian was out there. Stay quiet, I hissed, instinct kicking in. The creaking of the door sent thoughts spiraling. Whoever it was, they sensed the upheaval within my walls. Zara's eyes widened, realization dawning upon her, and for the first time since the chaos began, the atmosphere in the room shifted from unyielding hope to an electric uncertainty. I felt small and vulnerable amidst the life I had created, the identities I now bore, yet I also felt fierce, protective. I pulled her close, whispering my fears, and sealed them within me, knowing I could not afford to break just yet. The shadows at my door seemed to pulse with a life of their own, a grim reminder that while my world expanded into the miraculous, the dangers of revealing our existence lurked within the darkness. Then, just as the chill of impending disaster began to settle in my bones, we heard a voice low, thick with a twisted familiarity. "I know you're in there. Don't try to hide. I've come to help or to take what's mine." The unsettling calm unraveling before my ears left my heart racing, and as the knocking turned to pounding, the fragile bubble of hope I had started to build threatened to burst. This moment felt pivotal, a choice that held the power to change everything I had come to know. I had to decide then and there if I would let the shadows in, or fight for the light. The pounding echoed through my chest, each hit a reminder of the precarious balance between life and despair that lurked within my small apartment. I was teetering on the edge, grasping desperately at the last threads of hope I had managed to weave in the midst of chaos. The little hatchlings cried out, unaware of the danger looming just beyond the threshold, their innocent calls mixing seamlessly with my rising panic. "What do we do?" Zara whispered urgently, her eyes darting to the door, then back to me, the uncertainty morphing into dread. "I don't know," I admitted, my voice trembling. "What if it's them? What if they've found me?" "Then we prepare." Her response was immediate, her grasp on my arm firm and anchoring. "We can't let fear dictate our actions. We have to protect them. We need to find a way to defend ourselves." Murmurs of agreement came from the tiny creatures now nestled around our feet, their small forms impervious to the weight of the world outside. In that moment, I felt an unexpected flicker of defiance rise within me. In my heart, I knew the call of fear beckoning me to retreat, but the need to protect these fragile lives was louder. I took a deep breath, rallying my scattered thoughts. "We can't fight something we can't see," I said, my voice more steady than I felt. "But we can't let them in. If Lucy was right, they'll want what's ours." Zara nodded, her brow furrowing in concentration. "Do you have anything? Anything at all that can help us keep them at bay?" The apartment felt starker, the walls closing in as if they were listening in on our conversation. My gaze fell to the small table where I'd arranged supplies, a collection of items that had once seemed mundane but now felt like potential lifelines. Large glass jars that could hold the hatchlings if worst came to worst, shards from the eggshells that might scare off unwanted visitors, a few stray candles scattered about the room for lighting. But as I looked closer, I noticed that one old, thick glass container began to glow, faint yet unmistakable. "There's this," I said, scooping it up. "I don't know what it is, but it felt strong, almost protective when I found it." I offered it up, and Zara took it, her fingers brushing against mine, sending a jolt of electricity between us. The knocking intensified, and I could feel the air pressing in around me. "We need to create a barrier," Zara said urgently, her eyes lighting up with determination as she laid her plan out before me. "If we can channel this energy, maybe we can create a shield or something that keeps them out at least long enough for us to figure this out. Can you do that?" My incredulity slipped through, the thought seeming almost impossible. "I have to try," she said, her resolve stealing as she focused on the jar. I leaned in, willing to let her take the lead. Just as she began to concentrate, a fit of rageful blows reverberated against the door, as if the very world outside was demanding entry. I could feel every strike pulsing through me, each blow a promise of something dark and dangerous waiting to spill in. "I'll need your help," Zara said, her voice cutting through the noise. "Just focus with me. We need to channel your instinct, your connection to these little ones." I closed my eyes, forcing myself to breathe deeply as another blow rocked the door like a thunderclap. I imagined a barrier forming, an invisible shield wrapping around me, around Zara, and most importantly, the hatchlings. I envisioned warmth, like sunlight filtering through a thick canopy, infusing my spirit, wrapping it around us all stronger, steadfast. The jar in Zara's hand pulsed with warmth, its glow intensifying, and I reached out, melding my energy with hers. There was a moment of harmony, a sweet tension that thrummed in the air, and the knocking stilled, just for an instant, leaving us suspended in a fragile cocoon of silence. But then, like a crack in a dam, the door splintered under the force of another blow, the frame groaning, shuddering with the weight of wrath behind it. "Don't you dare let this go!" A taunting voice echoed through the wood. "You're not strong enough. You can't protect what you're hiding." The desperate urgency of the voice filled the space, chilling my bones. I glanced at Zara, her expression stubborn yet troubled, and I knew the time for inaction was over. We had to face whatever threat lay beyond that barrier. "What if we let them believe we're vulnerable?" I suggested urgently. "Maybe then they'll reveal themselves." Maybe my thought trailed off as a hint of inquiry passed over Zara's features. "Lead them into a trap? Like a diversion?" "Yes. If we can lure them away from this place, we may get a moment of peace to regroup." The blows continued, relentless, but I could feel our energies mingling, intertwining as the shell of protection around us solidified. As if on cue, another voice joined the first, softer yet equally menacing. "You think hiding will save you? You're stronger than you know, but we are persistent. And we will find you." Before I could respond, the door exploded inward, disintegrating into shards that scattered across the room like splinters of ice. The figure that emerged was shrouded in shadow, eyes gleaming brightly against the darkness, a grin spreading across their features as they stepped through the broken threshold. "Hey, race where the fun begins," they declared, savagely rich with menace. As the room filled with an ominous chill, I clutched the glowing jar to my chest, my heart thundering with the reality of our situation. There was no choice now. It was either fight or flee, a battle against darkness or succumbing to the abyss. I turned to Zara, ready to face the terrifying truth that lay before us, but just as I began to express my thoughts, the lights flickered, and the world around us began to transform. The shadows coalesced into forms, and out of those shadows emerged more figures, each twisted and malevolent. They were coming for us, and I realized in that terrifying instant that we were not just fighting for our lives, but for the futures of the creatures that had come to rely on us. The battle between light and dark was upon us, and every choice from here on would shape the destiny of not just me, but the lives that had emerged from within. As the shadows closed in around us, an unexpected pang of fear washed over me. I clutched the glowing jar tighter, its warmth dissipating in the cold air thick with menace. Zara stood beside me, her presence a bastion of strength against the tide of darkness that threatened to engulf our small haven. "Stay close," her voice was a measured whisper, even as her eyes darted, gathering the scattered threads of our fractured situation. I could see the flicker of determination behind her fear. "We can't let them separate us." The leader of the approaching shadow figures took a step forward, a sinister grin curling on their lips. "Oh, how sweet. It's delightful to see you think you stand a chance." Their voice oozed mockery, spinning around us like a chilling breeze. "You've kept us entertained long enough. Now, let's see just how strong you truly are in the light." A crack echoed in the room, and I felt the air shift, pulsating as if the very walls were aware of the impending destruction. I had never been trained for a battle of this magnitude, but desperation thrummed through me like a war drum. I turned to the hatchlings, their tiny forms trembling but rooted firmly at my feet, innocent and unaware of the impending storm. "Protect them," I urged myself silently, my heart racing. "Whatever it takes." Zara seemed to sense my resolve rekindling. "Remember the energy we channeled to create the barrier?" she asked, her eyes locking onto mine. "We can do it again, but we need to use their fear against them." I nodded, swallowing down my rising dread. "Let's draw them in," I murmured, the plan forming like molten iron igniting in my veins. With each moment of hesitation, I imagined the hatchlings' sweet cries, their fragile lives depending on us, igniting a fire within that I never knew existed. As the shadows advanced, I focused on the softness of that ephemeral warmth from the jar. I began to whisper, half pleading and half commanding, "Come closer. We're vulnerable. See how easily we could fall." Each word infused with the essence of hope we'd managed to weave through each surreal day, and I felt Zara molding her energy alongside mine in a swift dance of delicate resilience. The figures hesitated, sensing something in the air shift. "What do you think you're doing?" the leader hissed, their miasma swirling as they tried to maintain control. "You cannot turn the tides, they will only drag you further down." With mounting fervor, Zara and I harnessed our collective will, inviting in the shadows, giving them a taste of the power we felt within the glow of the jar. They swarmed like moths to a flame, drawn to the illusion of vulnerability. As they encroached, the atmosphere thickened. I could feel a rush of adrenaline coursing through my veins, a signal of impending energy. In that moment, everything felt intensely lived in, as if time itself had been woven into a frayed tapestry of light and darkness. But just as I was about to release our energy as a counterattack, the world around us trembled, and I caught Zara's eyes widen in horror. The leader of the shadows grinned, hands outstretched. "You think you can fool us? You are the ones who are trapped." With one swift motion, they unleashed a pulse of dark energy that rippled through the air, slamming into me with bone-rattling force. I stumbled backward, clutching the jar tighter, as its light flickered like a candle in a storm. Zara reached for me, but a wall of shadow erupted, isolating us, shards of darkness embedding deep into the walls, splintering their very foundation. "Zara!" I screamed, reaching out, but the darkness encircled her, blocking every attempt I made to draw her back. Her eyes were fierce, and for a brief moment, I could see a hint of trust flickering between us. "Don't give in. Remember the hatchlings, we're their lifeline," she shouted, the words slicing through the suffocating gloom. Out of sheer instinct and fear, I focused on the jar, channeling everything I had left into that solitary point of warmth. The shadows surged toward me, creating a whirlwind of chaos, and with a roar, I threw my energy into the light of the jar. It flared alive, illuminating the room and pushing back the shadows, if only for a moment. But a haunting truth dawned on me in that instant: Zara could be lost if the darkness managed to slip through, and the weight of that vulnerability sent shockwaves through my heart. The sense of isolation swelled, choking me, a twister of fear tightening its grip. "Stay strong," Zara cried, her voice breaking, urgency crackling like a storm. "I can sense something. There's something deeper within us, we have to embrace it." "Embrace what?" I shouted back, terror clawing at my insides. "Embrace our connection." A torrent of shadows surged toward her, and for a moment, the world fell eerily silent. I searched her eyes, and in that shared glance, something shifted. A truth unshackled, a shared heartbeat that danced across the divide. But before she could elaborate, the shadows coalesced, whispering dark promises, and the light I had conjured flickered precariously. The forces around us were greater than I ever anticipated, growing stronger with each moment. In that heartbeat of silence, just when it seemed everything we fought for hung on the precipice of darkness, I felt an overwhelming surge from the egg-shaped lives nestled on the floor, a warmth that spread as they instinctively reached toward us. The energy intertwined between us all shimmered like sunlight filtering through storm clouds. That connection sparked something deep within me, a glimmer of the profound bond we shared, a fragment of hope that might just be strong enough to pierce through the shadowy veil. But just as I prepared to act on this newfound understanding, as the darkness loomed closer, an intrusive whisper swept through the room. "Do you really think it ends here?" The leader's voice was now ragged with delight, and eerily confident. "What if I told you there are more like you, more than you realize? Hidden away, unprotected." And in that moment of dread, something shifted in the air. My heart dropped, fear gnawing on the edges of my resolve. The implications of their words wrapped around me like vines, squeezing tighter, as I prepared for the unfathomable reality of what lay ahead. The effort to protect the hatchlings suddenly felt like a single drop in an ever-expanding ocean of despair. As darkness edged closer, bringing with it shadows of nightmares I could scarcely comprehend. I drew one last breath before the world I had known fell away, leaving me teetering on the edge of calamity as the glow from the jar pulsed unevenly in my grasp. What if everything I loved, everything I fought for, was only the beginning of something much larger, much darker? The chill in the air thickened, wrapping around us like a shroud, and I felt the weight of the shadows pressing ever closer, their whispers now a cacophony of dread. My heart raced, a frenzied drum echoing the turmoil inside me. Around us, the hatchlings huddled together, their innocent forms illuminated only by the faint flicker of the jar, their tiny breaths quavering. I realized, with a sinking feeling in my gut, that if the shadows breached our defenses, their lives would hang precariously in the balance, just as my hope teetered on the brink. "Listen to me," I shouted, scrambling for composure. "We need to focus." For the hatchlings, Zara's fierce gaze met mine across the ever-thickening divide, her desperation palpable, mingling with a fierce determination that compelled me forward. Despite the shadows swirling and the overwhelming darkness set against us, I sensed the ember of our connection spark brighter. "We're stronger together," she reminded me, her voice strained but unwavering. I nodded, feeling the bond we shared stretching like an unseen thread across the chasm of shadows. It was the same connection that had inspired hope in our darkest moments, a lifeline I clung to as we fought against impending doom. I took a step forward, focused on the jar, its warmth pulsing in rhythm with our desperation. "Breathe with me," I whispered, mimicking the steady rise and fall of my chest. "In and out. Let's channel our energy, let it flow." Zara mirrored my movements, grounding herself in the exertions of our shared resolve. The shadows halted, momentarily confused by our synchronized effort, their murmurings faltering as if disturbed by an unexpected tremor. In that instant, I realized we could shift the tide, if only for a fleeting moment longer. As we began to channel our energy in tandem, I closed my eyes, picturing the hatchlings, vibrant and full of life, their tiny hopes resting upon us. I visualized the light of our jar merging with the iridescence of their dreams, weaving a tapestry of protect Iona's shield against the darkness encroaching upon our sanctuary. It worked momentarily. A pulse of light surged forth, pushing the shadows back, their forms writhing like smoke against the brilliance we conjured. The relief was touchable, and I held on to the feeling like a precious treasure, but even as we celebrated this small victory, the laughter and taunts from their leader filled the air, laced with malice. "You think you can keep us at bay forever? There are more like you, hidden away beneath this world's surface, and they are ripe for the picking." His words seeped into the depths of my mind, like poison. As his voice dripped with amusement, I felt my strength wavering, the initial confidence retreating like a tide. Did more like us exist? Despair washed over me like an icy deluge as I considered the implications. What if there were countless others out there, intertwined in this darkness? How could we possibly protect them all when we were fighting so desperately just for our small group? "Focus." Zara's sharp command pulled me back from the edge of that spiraling thought. "We can't give in. They're trying to break us." Her urgency sparked another flare of determination within me. "You're right," I exclaimed, forcing my focus back onto the glowing jar. "Together, we'll drive them back." With renewed vigor, I turned to the hatchlings, their innocent eyes wide and trusting. "We're fighting for your lives. Stay close." I felt the energy pulsing gently between them, like a ripple on the water's surface, showing me their own reserves of strength. They were more resilient than I realized, not mere innocents relying on us to shield them but companions holding life's promise within their fragile beings. I opened my heart to the jar, allowing its warmth to blanket me, and then focused on expanding that warmth, inviting the hatchlings to join as we connected in our shared origins of light. We silently gestured for them to channel their life energy, gathering courage like a shared breath. The luminous light began to swell, but just as I felt a surge of confidence which brightened my heart, the shadows around us shifted ominously, clawing at the edges of our defenses. The leader of the shadows advanced, a glee twinkling in their eyes. "Such a heartwarming effort," they cooed mockingly. Too bad it'll all be for nothing. I could sense danger approaching, a grip of ice creeping up my spine as I caught the sudden glimpse of movement in the darkness, a flurry of figures hidden just beyond the veil of shadows, undulating like marionettes on strings. They were gathering, and the leader's laughter echoed through the dimness, sending a jolt of fear rushing through me. What are they doing? I murmured, fear flooding my thoughts. A distraction, Zara replied, defiance in her voice. We can't let them divide us, but it was already too late. The shadows breached the light momentarily, shattering the connection we'd forged. The hatchlings cried out, a blend of confusion and fear swirling around us as the darkness enveloped them, collapsing our protective space into a disorienting maze of shadow. Zara! I screamed, reaching for her again, but the shadows consumed our sanctuary. Embrace the bond. You can do this. Her voice rang out, barely audible through the clamor of chaos. Desperation clawed at me, my breath coming in rapid bursts, the weight of impending loss crashing over me. We had fought valiantly, yet the darkness threatened to unravel everything we held dear, drifting closer like a turbulent storm bent on destruction. Just as hope seemed to falter, a glint caught my eye from within the abyss, where the shadows writhed. A shape emerged, luminous yet volatile, breaking through the thick haze like a shard of starlight piercing through a darkened sky. My heart raced, there was something familiar in its glow. Was it an ally or a harbinger of despair? Before I could comprehend its intent, the figure swept through the encroaching darkness, a luminous beacon tethered to a desperate plea. And in that moment the fabric of my reality seemed to splinter, unraveling at the seams. I felt a sharp pull, as if an unseen force reached out to tear apart the connection we fought to protect, challenging everything I thought I knew. As shadows tightened around us, I grasped the jar desperately, believing with every fiber of my being that our shared connection held the key to survival. But as the illuminated figure merged with the darkness, a chilling realization settled deep within my bones. They were not merely coming to our aid, but signaling an entirely unforeseen change in the balance of power, a harbinger of what lay just beyond the threshold of our understanding. And in that ambiguous twilight of hope and despair, my heart plummeted into an abyss of uncertainty, knowing that the fight for survival was only just beginning. The oppressive shadows clawed at the edges of my vision, wrapping around me with an unrelenting grip as I struggled to comprehend the figure that shimmered in and out of the darkness. It was as if the universe had shifted, what had once been a refuge was now a treacherous battleground. I held onto the jar tightly, feeling the warmth pulse within it, yet the warmth seemed distant, now fading against the biting chill of despair. Stay close. I yelled again to the hatchlings, though the urgency in my voice felt weak compared to the overwhelming darkness that encircled us. Instinctively, I stepped back, drawing the tiny ones near while Zara's fierce figure became a distant silhouette in the chaos. Together, we can. Zara's voice was swallowed by the shadows as they surged forward, and my heart sank. Fear had metastasized, clawing at my insides as I fought desperately to maintain my concentration. I envisioned our protective barrier brightening, the jar's glow flickering like a heartbeat. But the light danced nervously as the shadows struck hard against it, like waves crashing against a fragile shoreline. With a surge of energy, I rallied the hatchlings. You can do this. Feel the warmth between us. I encouraged, trying to thread the fraying whispers of connection through the fear that gripped their hearts. They looked up at me, their fragile faces trembling but their wide eyes filled with trust. One by one, they reached out, hands trembling as they wrapped around the jar, the light pulsing a little brighter. It was enough to break through the cold, to shed light against their shadows, but just as I felt a flicker of hope, a resounding roar of laughter echoed across our sanctuary. Oh, how sweet, the shadow leader taunted, his voice dripping with disdain. Believing a few glowing eggs could save you. The world is filled with darkness, and your little flicker is nothing but a candle in a storm. He waved a hand dismissively, and the shadows recoiled, shifting and morphing behind a curtain of confusion. I could feel my heartbeat quicken, dread grappling with the last threads of hope. But just as despair threatened to wrap its tentacles around my heart once more, that familiar glimmer caught my eye again. The figure within the shadows took shape once more, much closer now. It pushed through the dark tendrils with purpose, its glow contrasting with the eternal black suffocating us. My breath hitched, the light flickered with the remnants of a warmth I thought lost, a reminder of all I fought for, use the bond. It seemed to whisper, and though I could hear no voice, deep within I felt a resounding connection, like ripples spreading across a still lake. My breath steadied, and my resolve began to blossom. Whatever that figure represented, friend or foe, I understood that I could not let doubt infiltrate my heart. Focus. I shouted again, urgency bubbling in my chest. Channel your energy for each other, trust in the bond. The hatchlings gathered even closer. Slowly, with shallow breaths and concentrated will, I felt their warmth merging with the jar's glow as I concentrated on channeling that light outward, willing it to fracture the encroaching darkness. The shadows writhed, yet I could sense the hesitation. They were no longer a singular force but a chaotic storm teetering on the brink of something bigger. Just then, a chilling gust swept through, the shadows swirling like a tempest. "What are you doing?" the leader screeched, infuriated. "This isn't how it ends." His anger acted as a catalyst, as a surge of energy resonated between the hatchlings and me. It felt like we were drawing from an unseen wellspring deep within, one that had been waiting for this exact moment, the timing that would shift our fates for eternity. Bolstered by renewed strength, the jar began radiating brighter beams of light, eating away at the shadows that threatened to consume us. I laughed, a sound mixed with relief and exhilaration. We are not alone. We are never alone. Yet, as the shadows faltered, my triumph was short-lived. The figure emerged fully from the dark, and as its light met my gaze, clarity rippled through the chaos. I felt an intimate recognition, but it twisted everything I thought I understood. With each step forward, the light shimmered around it, revealing features lost to memories long past, faces of those I had known, faces that had vanished into the shadows. My heart sank as I realized who it was. The very entity I had thought lost to the darkness was alive, yet entangled in a larger web of fate that went beyond this moment. "You," I whispered, disbelief tangling with recognition. The figure met my gaze, sorrow and depth reflected in its eyes. "I've been waiting for you to remember. It is time for the past to awaken." Before I could comprehend what those words truly meant, the darkness surged again, thrumming to life, and I felt the ground beneath us quaking. Tidal waves of shadow surged forward, swallowing the figure whole as it brightened, a last beacon of light engulfed in the tumult. "Find the truth." Its voice echoed, ringing like a final note through the chaos. Suddenly, the world exploded into darkness, pulling me under like water in a storm, and as my vision faded, a thought bubbled within the depths of my consciousness, wild and chaotic, tinged with hope yet ominously terrifying. What truth awaited me in this endless night? And just as consciousness began to slip away, I felt the jar surge in my hand, flickering wildly, drawing strength from the bond we'd forged together, a fragile yet powerful force that refused to be extinguished. A glimmer, a flicker. We weren't finished yet. That ember of hope remained alive, teetering on the edge, waiting for the next breath of life. The journey to reclaim it had only just begun. The darkness pressed in, an unyielding blanket smothering every flicker of hope that had been kindled within us. My senses were dulled, a thick haze enveloping my mind as I struggled against the suffocating weight of despair. I clutched the jar tighter, feeling its warmth seep into my palm, offering a reassurance that felt miles away from the turmoil surrounding us. The hatchlings were huddled close, their small forms trembling against the ominous shadows that now felt more like sentient beings surrounding us, stalking us. Though the figure had vanished in the inferno of darkness, something pulsed within me, a hollow ache echoing through memories that felt like whispers rather than defined thoughts. It was as though each loss was a thread unraveling within the fabric of my being, and I instinctively knew that I couldn't let it break, at least not yet. "Stay together," I murmured, my voice surprisingly calm despite the chill gnawing at my heart. "We need to remember our strength." I looked at the hatchlings, their wide eyes reflecting uncertainty but also resilience, a mixture I had failed to recognize until now. "Believe in each other." And slowly, the warmth of our bond began to steady the staggering weight of the shadows. Each hatchling grasped the jar, their small hands poised as if we were creating an unspoken language, a signal to extend the light as far as possible. As if sensing our resolve, the shadows began to recede, taking hesitant steps back, and I could taste the unfamiliar flavor of hope. A faint sweetness mingled with the bitterness of fear. The hatchlings began to chant softly, their voices a delicate symphony rising through the darkness. It was a melody I hadn't heard in so long, a reminder of innocence, of shared moments filled with laughter and light. In that space between breaths, I felt my heart connect with theirs, a tether binding our souls together stronger than any darkness. But as the chant grew, so did the shadows. The growls were more pronounced now, serrated whispers slashing through the rhythm of our song. "How long do you believe this farce can last?" The leader's voice sliced through the fragile cocoon we had woven. Every flicker of light flickers in the face of eternity. I gripped the jar, feeling the warmth pulse like a heart, and I turned to the hatchlings. "We cannot let it end like this. No matter how small the flicker feels, it must fight for its breath." Then, something inside me shifted. Memories flowed together with an urgency that rattled me to my core, unveiling a rush of clarity bathed in sorrow. In seconds, I saw the faces of those who had come before, the caregivers, the protectors, the vanquished, all entwined in my heart. The figures arose like beacons, running through countless lives entwined within the fates of the hatchlings. "Fight for them," I whispered, feeling the essence of the collective pulsing through the walls of our dark prison. "Fight for every single moment we've shared." With a deep breath, I willed the jar to light up further, channeling the energy of the love, laughter, and loss I had felt throughout life. The air around us shimmered, and flickers of light broke free from the grip of despair. Luminous tendrils emerged from the jar, dancing like stars against the suffocating black. But just as our hope began to spiral into something tangible, a horrific crack split the air. From the depths, the leader swelled with horrific laughter, an indignant roar dismissing our bond. "No!" it rasped, fury dripping from its voice. "You think this love can challenge the inevitable?" In that moment, like a chill creeping beneath my skin, I realized that the shadows were not merely lost souls, they were the accumulated grief and pain of countless generations, and I was part of an ongoing story steeped in loss and anguish. With every heartbeat, I could feel the shadows thicken from the weight of despair, creeping around my limbs and clenching my breath. And as darkness surged forward once again, I felt everything crash down around me, a tremendous wave of energy slamming against our fragile light, forcing the hatchlings closer to me. I gritted my teeth, but fear began to invade my determination, chipping away at the hope I barely clung onto. "Fight!" I urged, as we huddled beneath a thin shield of light. "No!" shrieked the darkness above, this time filled with a venomous fury. "Your time is up." Just as the shadows threatened to surge forward, a single, beautiful thread of light pierced through the cacophony. It exploded outward like a supernova, allowing one of the hatchlings to fling their arms out wide. In that crazy, reckless moment, hope crashed through on the waves of light, a fragile force against all odds, bursting through the fabric of despair. But as the shadows writhed in pain, another crack resonated through me, sharper and more striking than all that had come before. I caught a fragment of a disembodied whisper within the chaos. "Find the truth before it consumes you," it urged, elusive yet deeper than anything I had ever experienced. It was almost a voice, echoing through the void, leaving a trail of omen in its wake. And then, as suddenly as the light had ignited, it began to wane. The shadows twisted, threatening to snuff out our candor, drawing on my deepest fear, failing them, of losing everything I loved. Just as the darkness threatened to encircle us completely, I felt the jar tremble in my hands, the warmth turning colder. With a flash of profound intuition, I understood finding the truth would be our only salvation, and yet how could I even begin to uncover it amidst the chaos? And there, in that pivotal moment of trailing twilight, a new wave of terror washed over Meth, awareness that the shadows could indeed swallow us all, but in doing so, they would also reveal a crux I hadn't seen coming. What if the truth we sought was much darker than I could imagine? From deep within the endless night, I felt the final crack surge forth, unfurling in shimmering ribbons that shimmered against the suffocating black, and just as my heart sank into a pit, I braced myself for the storm that would come, knowing this was merely the prologue to a revelation that would change everything. The glow from the jar flickered weakly, battling against an onslaught of despair that pressed heavily against my chest. With each pulse of desperation emanating from the shadows, I turned toward the hatchlings. Their faces, once bright with intuitive innocence, were now marred with an echo of my own fear, the reality of our fragility amplified by the cacophony of darkness encroaching upon us. "Remember that melody," I whispered, desperate to cling to something that felt right amidst the chaos. "Let it guide you. Let it remind you of every moment we've shared, every laugh and every tear." The hatchlings nodded, their small heads bobbing in unison. They raised their voices again, this time hesitantly, as if testing the air around us. The haunting air of their chant reached for the heights of peril, weaving delicately against the fraying thread of light that had bound our resolve. But the shadows answered back with a bone-chilling howl that slithered through the corners of my mind. It was an unnerving silence that followed, a silence pregnant with uncertainty, heavy as an unyielding storm. Each second stretched beyond the realm of comfort, leaving me questioning the very foundation of our fight. I sought strength from the jar in my hands, its warmth barely perceptible, and I willed it to glow brighter. I needed to break through the suffocating fog of sorrow that clung to the hatchlings and to me. Desperation gnawed at the edges of my consciousness. The memory of laughter and joy felt like a replayed dream, one that I fought to maintain against the dissonance around us. A light emerged, illuminating the depth of shared sorrows and moments of joy from times long past. It was a reminder of who we were before this darkness enveloped us, relics of love reverberating within our hearts. My eyes fluttered shut, and I allowed that thread of hope, delicate and fleeting, to unfurl delicately, drawing strength from the intangibility of unity and shared experience. As the flicker erupted into an ember, I opened my eyes to see words forming on the lips of the hatchlings, words that echoed my own intention, even in the face of despair. "Well, fight, no matter what." Their small voices chanted in unison, breeding courage even in moments when my own spirit faltered. But just then, harsh laughter erupted from the swirling shadows, snapping me back to the present. The leader's voice cut through the air, a low rumble of derision. "You think you can outshine the void with memories? You are fools," it spat, and with that, the darkness thickened around us, cutting off the airy feel of hope we had only just birthed. "Do not let it engulf you," I cried out, feeling the weight of my own doubt creeping back in. "Stand strong. We are more than our fear." In that anxiety-laden heartbeat, one of the hatchlings, Ray, the most timid among them, took a step forward. The flicker of resolve ignited in their eyes as they extended their hands, palm out towards the gnashing darkness. "No. You won't take us," Ray shouted defiantly. The declaration rang true, an unexpected wave of shock rippled through the atmosphere, and for a brief moment, the shadows hesitated. Behind Ray, the others rallied, igniting their own courage from the depths of their small but fierce hearts. I could feel their collective strength swirling around me, forming a cocoon that began to push back the shadows. "Together!" I shouted, overwhelmed with newfound determination. But with every tremor of power, something darker lurked in the void. A pulse, just beneath the surface, boomed with authority. "You can only maintain this light so long," the leader's voice warned, each syllable like daggers laced with venom. "Your tenacity will only lead you to the abyss." Something snapped within me, that relentless claim clawed at my sanity, revealing a deeper truth hidden beneath layers of fear. "What do you want from us?" I screamed, the echo of my voice clawing through the heaviness of our surroundings. A silence fell, expectant and suffocating, and then, in an instant, the darkness surged forward, freezing my breath and stilling my body. I sensed an energy gathering, a sharpness that coalesced over my skin, a cyclone waiting to smash against the fragile bones of our collective strength. Just before the impact could shatter our feeble hope, I glimpsed remnants of what I'd lost: warm smiles, loving embraces, and promises once made that appeared as fleeting as fireflies fading into the night sky. With a sudden jolt, I pushed against the fear crowding around me. My mind raced back to the whisper I had heard before. Find the truth before it consumes you. I realized the shadows were drawn not merely to our angst but to the truth we had yet to uncover. The truth? I gasped. We must embrace it. But before I could offer further encouragement, something sharp pierced through the fabric of our bubble of light. I turned, and there, emerging from the shrouded depths of the shadows, was a figure cloaked in the same dark silhouette I feared. With it came a sickening realization, a familiar face twisted into a mockery of sadness and brutality. Stay close. I urged the hatchlings as dread coiled deeper into my heart. But the figure pressed forward, and the remnants of those I lost morphed into voices that echoed within me. You cannot escape your beginnings, nor will you escape your truths. It spoke, twisting my memories as a predator turns its prey. The oncoming reality felt heavier than before, entwining with the light and pulling me backward, dragging the very shards of my spirit toward the shadows. The collective pulse of the hatchlings began to wane, a reminder of the fragility of our connection. And there, at the cusp of darkness swallowing our flicker of light, I felt a shock of betrayal, the possibility that the truth might not just be the words I sought to unearth. It shimmered in the air, pregnant with heartbreak, and as my heart raced, clarity struck me like lightning. The truth isn't just ours to wield. It binds us and reveals secrets we may not want to face. In that single breath, identity splintered, spiraling toward an unknown destiny. What truth lay hidden beneath the weight of shadows? The weight of it all hovered heavily upon my heart. Could the fight for light unveil a self I hadn't yet come to understand amidst the cacophony? And as the darkness surged forward, threatening to engulf all that I held dear, I realized, with horror, that the revelation looming ahead could shatter everything we thought we knew. A wave of despair crashed down upon us, a final warning heralding the moment of truth that would emerge from the depths of our darkest fears. The shadows closed in, an encompassing abyss that threatened to swallow us whole. My heart raced as the figure I had once known melted into a haunting specter, its presence swirling with chilling familiarity. Memories surged, overwhelming and bittersweet, surfacing wounds I believed were long buried. In that moment, I stood at the precipice of existential fragile balance between truth and despair. Who are you? I demanded, my voice trembling but defiant. What do you want from us? The dark figure stepped closer, its voice an eerie whisper like wind through dead leaves. What I want is simple. I want to remind you of your past, to illuminate the truths hidden within darkness, to guide you toward your ultimate destiny you cannot escape. As I watched, that fearsome visage began to shift, contorting into faces I had lost along the way, individuals wrapped in layers of warmth and love, exuding echoes of joy long silenced. You can fight it, the figure urged, but you also need to accept it. A staggering realization crashed over me. The shadows were not merely an external threat, they were manifestations of my fears, of the grief and isolation I had carried like a shroud for years. Could it be true? I was both fixed and fluid, both a warrior and a victim of my own design. No, you can't. I felt panic rise, but just then, Ray, the bravest of the hatchlings, stepped forward. Stop! He yelled, standing tall against the darkness enveloping us. You can't take us. We fought too hard for what we have. His small frame trembled with resolve, and with every heartbeat, I could feel the warmth spreading in the air, a connection blossoming like wildflowers beneath the sun. Yes, I added, pushing back against the darkness binding me. Together, we are stronger than any shadow. Bearing the weight of my uncertainty felt more daunting with each fragmented echo of my past. Those long-lost faces, woven intricately with my pain, demanded me to confront them. We are not just our grief, we are our joy, our shared moments, our love, and we are worthy of embracing that love. As I spoke, a strange light emanated from the jar, mingling with the growing courage of the hatchlings. Their vibrant energy surged toward me, illuminating the darkness inch by inch, and I felt the shadows flicker with uncertainty. The figure faltered, flickering like a candle battling against the wind. A deep chill swept through me as I recalled the words of the leader of shadows, "The truth binds, and what you truly fear can bring ruin, does it?" I proclaimed defiantly. "Or can it be our saving grace?" In that moment, I understood, if I were to overcome the darkness that surrounded us, embracing the truth that had haunted me was vital. I had to peel away the veneer of fear and end the cycle of denial that festered deep within my heart. Together with Ray and the hatchlings, we could turn the tides. "I accept what I have lost," I declared, my voice resonating. "And I embrace the bonds that unite us all." The air shimmered with the energy from the hatchlings, now a radiant aura combatively glowing around us. The darkness, sensing the shift, roared back, but there was a flickering pulse of warmth that surged through me, not just from the jar, but from a collective understanding nourishing our souls. "Yes, embrace it," Ray echoed. "All of it." And then, like thunder cracking the sky, the shadows recoiled, the despair and anger stirring into something unmanageable. The leader shrieked, lost in a maelstrom of frustration, and in that cacophonous moment, every face that had haunted me began to dissipate, merging with the light, resolving from agony into acceptance. I felt the tide turn, the darkness screamed, a wail that echoed through the air as the light swelled, flooding every inch of our surroundings. "You are nothing without your shadows." It howled, words disintegrating against our bond, a chorus of power, of memories forged into something magnificent and unstoppable. "Together, we are a force." I cried at that wretched nothingness, hands raised high against the darkness. "We are love, we are pain, we are everything in between. I won't let you take us." As the shadows pressed against our combined energy, I thought I saw a glimpse of what laid beyond, an expanse of brilliance, vibrant and free, flickering in and out like the fabric of forgotten dreams. The hatchlings began to chant, their innocent voices swelling in crescendo, an anthem of hope that sang through every atom surrounding us. And in that sacred moment, when hope gripped the air, I watched as the darkness trembled. It waned and flickered like a fire starving for oxygen. "No!" the shadow leader screamed, rippling fiercely, desperate to breach the light. "You will pay for this insolence." With a surge of strength, I clenched the jar tightly, pushing every fragment of faith I had, pouring it into the light until it glowed like a star. "You don't understand. We are not in this alone. And if we are worthy of love, our hearts will always guide us. The truth will only free us." The light overwhelmed, flooding the shadows and wilting them into oblivion. The swirling darkness collapsed in upon itself, folding like a fabric pulled from a quivering fire. It faded into nothingness, leaving silence, the taste of triumph blossoming in the air, all at once a catharsis, a rebirth. The jar shimmered in my hands, now resonating with the essence of home, a sanctuary of connection forged in the fires of our struggle. Together, we had faced the darkness and birthed illumination. The hatchlings cheered, their laughter brightening the air like 1,000 fairies dancing under moonlight. As I watched their jubilant faces, tears streamed down my cheeks, each drop a testament to our journey, a saga woven from joy and loss. In that realization, I understood, we were not defined by our shadows, but shaped into something beautiful by our resilience. And as dawn broke through the open door, unveiling a world painted in warm hues, I gazed at the new blank canvas before us. "Let's go find a place we belong," I whispered, knowing now that love could overcome anything. Together, we emerged from the threshold, ready to embrace our shared truths with open hearts. At that moment, it wasn't merely about survival, it was about living fully, and I knew no matter where our journey led, we would never face the darkness alone again. This was our new beginning. Light blossomed before us like wildflowers bursting through concrete, and as I looked over my shoulder one last time at the ruins behind us, my heart thrummed with an unshakable certainty: every story is illuminated in the embrace of truth. And the greatest light often shines brightest when we dare to confront our shadows head-on.